I would be pleased to know if there were any questions or any comments, particularly about meditation, and in particular about the value of making the mind more still, peaceful, and stepping away from all kinds of agitation in order to just come to that quiet place by having an object of meditation that's so simple and not something that arouses the emotions, but something that is supporting calmness and clarity. I don't know if anybody here has a question or a comment about that.
Hi, I have a question. One of the I've been trying different things to focus on with meditation, and one of the things I've tried is the breath. And I feel like anytime I try to focus on my breathing, I either start having like my anxiety increase and start breathing really fast, or I start yawning a lot. It's like I'm over focused on it or something. So I go, you know, two different ways. I was wondering if you had any advice on that.
Well, the depending on a person's life history, or it could even be a health factor, the breath can be a more difficult object for some people, and then for other people it could be an object which is naturally pleasant. But it's not the desire to control the breathing, but instead just to let the breath do its thing and simply sort of like stand aside and watch it. The breath is an activity of the body that goes on autonomously when we're not giving it any awareness, but then if we pay attention to it, we can breathe intentionally. So the trick is getting the intention away from it. One suggestion I would make that I think could be really helpful is if you do walking meditation, if you practice breath awareness while doing the walking meditation, coordinate your breathing and your walking, like breathe in one step, breathe out one step. But what happens is the speed of your walking is following the breath. It's like the breath is the leader, and it's just a more kind of like a natural way to get into this continuous breath awareness in something that's a bit more like naturalistic. And then when you come to sit in meditation, it may not seem so artificial or unnatural or uncomfortable for you. Of course, in the olden days, people used walking as their main means of transportation. So people did a lot of walking. And I believe that there's some kind of a really good kind of psychological health that comes about from that kind of physical activity of the rhythmic activity of the walking. And of course, one can be walking and thinking, or one can just be walking and just being present for that. So that's one idea about making the breath more comfortable. Usually when I'm doing breathing meditation, I take a couple of deep breaths, and then the breathing out, the long, strong out breath, like a sigh, like like that, that has a really good impact of releasing tension in the body, and also can be like releasing psychological tension. So sometimes it can be good to take the long in-breath and then the strong out-breath a couple of times, and then stop controlling the breath and just let the breath do its own thing and try to follow it. There are other objects that can be alternative to the breath. John, there's one, the sound of silence, or the slight vibration. Ajahn Sumedho, I think, teaches about that, meditating on the sound that's happening on the inner ear. Another object is simply the touching sensation of the hands. And so if the breath meditation really is getting like stressful and difficult, one can try a different object. I'm not thinking a series of like verbal meditations like loving kindness. That's another kind of meditation, but just being aware of another part of the body or another aspect of the body at rest, and do that for a while, and then come back to the breath. But it's definitely worth it to get to find a way to make the breath meditation comfortable for you, because it's a really good. It's one of the most wonderful objects for meditation. So I hope that helps. Thank you for asking.
Thank you.
I have a Dhamma theme in mind for today. It's about the interaction or the weaving together of the ethics, the morality, the sila, the virtue part of our practice. It's part of the Eightfold Path, and how that ties in with wisdom. One thing that I've been noticing, reading in the suttas, and also recollecting when I think about all of the great and inspiring teachers who I've encountered in my lifetime, how for one who has a realization in this practice, that there's this beautiful quality, this ethical skillfulness that is just becomes is so much of like a second nature. And then it's even, promised in the suttas that one who has stream entry, that their virtue would be strong and pure and loved by the noble ones, even if they can sometimes make a mistake once in a while. And that as one goes along this path of training on the noble path, that the ethical qualities become more and more unshakable. So I was remembering earlier on in my own life, like when I first when I first encountered the Buddha, this meditation and the practice of vipassana meditation and mindfulness on the Buddhist path, I noticed that if I allowed my day to be extremely turbulent or filled of conflict or filled with actually even like watching a show about a war or a gunfight or some love story, and something like that when the mind is turning that way, that then it would be more difficult in coming back to the meditation for the mind to just settle and come back and return and stay with the breath. And if I'd done something unskillful and that I felt ashamed of myself because of something I had done, that then it would be difficult to come back. That would have been placing a certain kind of agitation that made it difficult. And so that at the beginning, I was motivated to straighten up my ethical conduct in order to support the meditation. Because I really wanted to be successful in meditation. And I saw that when I straightened up my ethics, then the meditation became easier and brighter and better. And then later on, it got to be so that when the mindfulness was more general quality of life, that when something that was, maybe not that bad, but it was bad enough to be verging towards something that was unskillful, like having a grudge or thinking of some resentful thought, even though I hadn't necessarily said anything or done anything about it, just holding something in my heart that was unskillful, that I could be sensitive enough because of the meditation that it was literally like a shadow. They have the cartoon of the character who's always got a rain cloud over them, and so if I was entertaining thoughts that were unskillful, it was like the cloudy shadow was over me. And then when I was able to step out of it, I could just feel the brightening and the lightness and the clarity. So then the mindfulness was helping in that way. So that's like one of the ways that there's a connection one can see. But then, nevertheless, it's very possible for especially later on when I entered into the monastic form, I went from being, like when I was a laywoman, I was one of the nicest people I knew. But when I got into the monastery, I was one of the least nice people that I could find in the monastery. And so I had a lot to feel remorseful about, because it was very difficult to adjust the level of deportment to just be so considerate and careful and conscientious all the time, as with the standard that was expected in the monastery. So then there was quite a lot of time of, like going back to being a freshman or going back to being in the kindergarten, and then trying to learn all this. And what I noticed then, there's kind of a difference between a kind of virtue that's not really well integrated and not arising from within, but instead something that's being either imposed, or one is trying to like put on a suit that doesn't necessarily quite fit. And then it's possible to go one of two ways. One is to develop a certain amount of inner resistance, like you're trying to be good, but then internally there's a resistance, and there's some part of you that just doesn't want to, and so then that inner resistance, that can come into some like a passive aggressive or some kind of a rebelliousness, or even for me there was a point of time. It came to me in my I was having a dream of being like a wooden doll. And I knew that just trying to live up to the standard by suppressing myself was not the way. And that it was actually necessary to be authentic, even though sometimes it would seem that my behavior was not as skillful. So, but I definitely had some growth to do before the sense of the whole monastic level of having such a high, very careful attention to virtue at the most subtle level needed to be developed in me. So one danger is this, that the effort of conforming can cause inner rebellion. And then the other danger is that a person who's striving to live up to the standard can become what we would call a Vinaya Nazi. So they will have learned all the rules and regulations, not just the 175 rules of a bhikkhu or the 311 rules of a bhikkhuni, but there's an infinite number of additional rules that are implied in the kandakas of our Vinaya. So the number of rules, and then there's the korwat, or the customs, of the particular place, and the features, the cultural features, depending on which branch of Buddhism. If we're in a Tibetan temple, we got to conform with Tibetan culture, or depending on what the lineage is that the temple is coming down from. And so then those who really are successful and able to learn and master and come up to this beautiful deportment, then may feel angry and harsh towards somebody else who's not coming up to this mark. So those are like the dangers of like an immature virtue. So then, so that's another side of it. I don't really have all of these ideas completely integrated, but I've got more than two ideas to say. Then was a third quality of it that came to me like much later on, and that is related to the Four Noble Truths and fully integrating the Four Noble Truths as a sort of like it's a way of life. It's like one's life's endeavor to realize these Four Noble Truths. When I was much younger in my Buddhist life, I suffered a lot with unruly emotions. And so then, and as well with, well, you could say unruly emotions anyway, grief, sadness, depression, anxiety, and anger would be the major ones. And so then I spent a long time investigating dukkha, really studying dukkha. I got a PhD in dukkha, in understanding like psychologically, like both from a kind of like integrating the Buddhist psychology about the khandhas and craving and conceit and how those operate, then integrated with my other understandings about emotions, and it just it got to the point where I'm not at this point I'm not the least bit impressed by dukkha. If dukkha comes to me, or if I'm like get up and I'm in a bad mood, like I had a wonderful winter retreat, and the last 3 weeks of the retreat were my solitary seclusion time. And then when I came out of retreat, I was more discombobulated than usual. The transition out of silent retreat to being up and about and talking to people and so forth. And you might have noticed in this class, I couldn't manage to operate the machinery of this microphone and the cameras and so forth to give you a Dhamma talk. On that first day of coming out of retreats, everything was like so difficult, and then the amount of things that I had set aside on my to-do list is also it was making me feel stress, like not comfortable, a dukkha, But the thing is that I don't. If you're not onto, if you're a victim of dukkha, then it's mainly the reactivity to dukkha that causes most of the unskillful, unwholesome behavior, is because you think, oh, this is a big mistake. I'm not supposed to have dukkha. Get away, dukkha. And then you think, somebody else is the cause of my dukkha, and I can, that this little person within gets up on their soapbox and starts making a very angry speech about something is wrong because of dukkha, and but if you know dukkha, then it just doesn't disturb you anymore. It's just one of those things. Sometimes everything is really lovely and great and clear, and then sometimes things come across that are difficult. Sometimes the body doesn't cooperate and it's difficult. Sometimes we feel exhausted because we had to exert ourselves too much, and then the body and the mind together can become difficult because of, and it's just dukkha. It's not anybody's fault whatsoever. It's just one of those things, and it's no reason to lash out or to become like a self-protective, like I would, kill all my enemies if that would get rid of my dukkha or something like that. That just doesn't come along, because dukkha is not to be disturbed about. And then so that's a big aspect of where the unskillful impulses can come from, is being afraid of dukkha. But when we're not afraid of dukkha anymore, then those impulses don't come up anymore. The way I sometimes describe it is that when the wisdom and mindfulness are not present, and some unpleasant thing happens, the reactivity can be sort of like stored up. It's like carrying a weapon, and then even if you restrain yourself from speaking in anger or speaking unskillfully temporarily, then later on something happens that triggers it, and then the explosion happens. But if you once this study of dukkha is finished, it's like there's no ammo. So even if something happens that's like very insulting or really harsh, or like really terrible, it would be like something pulls the trigger, but there's no ammo. So it's just a click. The gun just made click, and that's all there is. There's nothing there. There's no explosion. It's empty. There's no more ammo. So in that way, virtue becomes much easier. Then it seems to me that when we understand when the conceit about the self begins to break up, then there's so much more natural sympathy for beings everywhere. It's a very strange thing, isn't it? So, like one's own suffering, it seemed like it just broke, and it's not a thing anymore. And yet, the suffering or the challenges of the world are very real, and one is sensitive without getting sensitive but not reactive. I'm going to quote something. Here. As I am, so are they. As they are, so am I. Comparing oneself to others, one should not kill or cause others to kill. That's part of the quality of a sage. In a different sutta, the qualities of a sage: abuse, killing, caging. They endure these without anger. Patience is their powerful army. They're not irritable. They understand for themselves the end of suffering in this life, with the burden put down, detached. This sutta is about the Brahmin, not the sage, but the Brahmin. That's who I call a Brahmin, a real Brahmin. They're deep in wisdom. They're expert on the path and what is the path and what's not the path. They've reached the highest goal. They don't associate with attachments with dear ones. They're like a migrant with no shelter, with few wishes, and they laid aside violence against creatures firm and frail, not killing or making others kill, not fighting among those who fight, extinguished among those who are armed, not taking among those who take. They've discarded greed and hate, along with conceit and contempt. When this realization happens with the Four Noble Truths, fully understanding what dukkha is and how it works, finding out that it comes from a cause, and that cause, namely that craving, can be let go. And every moment in which that cause is let go is the moment of freedom, the realization, and that there's a path to find out how to do this completely. Then there's that break, and with that break, something about our attachments and our neediness in our social relationships also breaks in a way. So then the other entire 2/3 of the reasons why people can get involved with unskillful, unwholesome, unethical behavior is because of their mistakes they make about their attachments with other people, right? So if somebody goes to war, or if the whole team gets together and decides to go to war, in a way, like, nobody is doing it for themselves. They're doing it for the team, or they're doing it for their family, they're doing it for their loved ones, deciding to go and kill for others. And just the same way, what do they say about falling in love? All's fair in love and war. So, falling in love, there's how many unskillful things and mistaken things and confused things and misguided things do people get involved with because of love, because of attachment, and because of thinking that our own security, our own safety, even our own well-being, even our own life is dependent on being appreciated, respected, and loved by others. And so we've got that neediness at the very heart of our social relationships, and that's where the Brahman, like when we come home, we've got a kind of an independence. That's something about that a dependency on the social connection has cracked in a way. It's not a motivator. And yet, at the same time, the capacity for love, for compassion, for kindness, for real connection with people is just as much or greater, maybe double what it was before, because it's not clouded with neediness. And so I believe that that may be a part of a reason why those who have attained something, who've attained the noble path, who've attained any of the fruits of this path, would have a natural kind of a virtue, because they would never be manipulated in that way. This kind of liberation is really important for those who are clergy, who are religious professionals, because we know that a lot of people may be projecting something onto us, and we can have a certain kind of a power over people because of, appearing to be spiritual, and that creates opportunities for exploitation. I won't say that I've seen this in among Buddhist monks, but I have encountered among the I'm not trying to criticize the Catholic Church, but I've known a lot of Catholic priests and nuns, and sometimes they don't learn, or they're not encouraged to practice meditation. So they don't have the recourse to meditation. They give their entire life in service. So they're working all the time, and they're celibate, so they can be lonely and tired and burned out, and not having some of the resources that we have that are conducive to inner tranquility and inner happiness. And it's for that reason that those clergy could be vulnerable to falling in love, because they're just tired and exhausted and lonely. But we feel that one who has got the fruition of this path of practice would never be vulnerable in that way, so they wouldn't be in danger of that kind of unethical behavior, and they would be, fully fully connecting with people, but without that neediness. So there's a kind of a real weaving together of sila and wisdom, that as we develop mindfulness and honesty towards ourselves, that then whenever we've come towards anything that was unskillful, we know it right away. And we learn how to take care of it right away, to emerge out of those states, and to not allow those kind of unskillful mental habits to become strengthened into becoming habituated. So then the mindfulness is the barometer that tells us whether we're on the track or not on the track. And then normally, I often say, coming back to the Four Noble Truths, if anything happens that I am experiencing psychological pain, then if I really look and investigate and think it over, I may be able to discover there is something that I was clinging to. And that's the reason why I feel painful, is because I was clinging to something. And it could be that I didn't even realize that I had that vulnerability. So, it's like as we become along the path and more different things, the deeply ingrained things that we have may come to the surface and become knowable. And so then dukkha is like our teacher, that's teaching us how to become ever more like refined in being able to give up everything that's unskillful. And then when we begin to experience some of the comforts of practice, some of the joy of this practice, then it's also true that we begin to have so much gratitude and trust in this path and in this spiritual community, which maybe includes all the sentient beings that we might encounter, maybe part of our sangha at any particular moment. And there's just so much gratitude, to be a sentient being in a world full of sentient beings, to be capable of having the opportunity to realize this, and so that then that naturally evolves to this kind of tenderness and consideration for others, which is the other portion of that intuitive, natural virtue that would be a quality of somebody who's developed on the path. So these are my ideas, and I would be very pleased to hear what your ideas might be about the victories that you have experienced in the evolution of your own virtue, or the challenges that you may have experienced in the past, or what you even feel in the present about having the inclination for the good, just to be just the natural and normal way of life. If somebody would like to speak, if they could use the raise the hand icon, then I'll know who has something to contribute. Every time I see, excuse me, but every time I see Maureen in the room, I'm so grateful because I know that it's almost midnight in Virginia. And I'm so grateful that you're willing to stay up late in order to be with this class. Do you have anything to tell us tonight?
Not really, just that I'm so tired. But I do appreciate you hearing you talk and from your own experiences, and that I find that it is trying to see things as they really are, and I have noticed it over the years. I've a long way to go still, but I can see where the way when you recognize an unskillful emotion or reaction is happening, if you can just see that, it's so helpful in your daily life. And that's about where I am now. But it's, yeah. I'm actually going to go to bed, I think, now, because it's really,
Well,
I do appreciate hearing you and being also with everybody else.
very good.
Yeah, yes.
Well, thank you for being with us tonight.
Oh no, Kalyana Mitta.
Yes.
That is what is very nice for me.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, I.
Ananea.
Thank you, Maureen. It's really always lovely to have you here, and especially as I mentioned that you make that effort. And I think Ruwanti also are in Florida. We've got several people. Ruwanti and Mike, I thought he was here, but anyway, they're in Florida, so we do have some people at quite a distance. For myself, in dealing with dukkha, which is an ongoing thing, of course. It's when I really, really understood that feelings aren't personal. That was just huge. And it makes such a difference in dealing with people when you realize that Vedana is Vedana. And it arises and it goes away. And that's the other thing, of course, is that impermanence is the other sanity saver and lifesaver, is that as bad as it isn't going to stay that way. Even if it seems like very minute increments, but eventually it does shift. And so those things are my anchors. And I'm very, very, among other things, I'm very grateful for both of those aspects of practice.
Thank you. And it's wonderful that the Buddha taught about Vedana, and as an alternative to saying, oh, this really makes me angry, so just the way that's framed, it's like, if you frame it that way, then the result of that, you've got to do something about it because it's making you angry. But if you just say, oh, this is unpleasant, then one can just leave it alone. And the same thing when you say, I'm in love with that, as opposed to saying, well, it's a pleasant feeling. It's how the teaching about the Vedana really is such a powerful way of framing how we can see those things in a way that allows us to not hold on. Yeah. Hey, thank you. I think there's a question at the what?
Hello, Ayya. We have a question here.
Yes.
Please start.
My name is Bo, and I am. I've taken meditation up with encouragement of my son and also of my community. I am part of a community, and I have a question about this dukkha, and I think I was understanding this dukkha to be some kind of disturbance that shows up. And were you saying embrace the disturbance, or embrace that there is a disturbance there and just let it be until it resolves itself, until you see light through it, until you see clarity, and just observe that disturbances happen, and let go.
Thank you. That's true and it's not true. So like if the disturbance is, I hate somebody, and that's the disturbance, we recommend give up that hatred. Get rid of that hatred, throw it away. But you can't just throw it away. You have to accept it first before you can throw it away. You have to at least accept it to look to understand it. Because if you try to just sweep it under the rug, that won't ever do the work. But if you understand it, then you may be able to let it go. When I was much earlier in my practice, I analyzed them in terms of like, how is it manifesting in the body? What kind of perception do I have about the situation that's causing me to be reacting that way? And what do I want to do about it? And how do I feel about it? And then I would get into these negativity sometimes and actually literally not know how to get out of it. But if I wanted to get out of it. So let's say I want to get out of this resentment and I don't know how. So first I see how it is happening in the body, and can I change the body? I mean, can I take a hot shower or do some yoga stretches or something relaxing to get the tension out of my body? And then if the body changes, then it's possible for the mind to change. See, so I'm doing this on purpose. I'm trying to give myself my own psychotherapy. How can I get the mind to get out of this rut? Or if I can look at the situation and say the story that I built up about it is actually, it's only partly true, but partly it's not true, and I can look at it in a different way. And then I can get out of that rut. Or I can say, what's the intention? And say, well, I really would like to kill that person or get rid of them or something like that. And this is and there could be many kinds of disturbances. And then, so I would intentionally do something else. Like I would intentionally give them a flower. And even though it was, at one level it was insincere, at another level, I was just taking, that I have this secret desire to do something bad, and I'm replacing it with a desire to do something good. See, so now I no longer am involved in doing things in quite that mechanical way. It's more just because of impermanence, because you just see oh, that's not the right way. And then I just ask the one question, what am I clinging to? And then when I realize what I'm clinging to, then let it go. So if you know the difference between what's skillful and what's not skillful, what's good for you and what's poisonous for you, if it's something that's good for you, then keep it. If it's something that's poisonous for you, then find out how to let it go. And that's the huge part of the training, is just realizing, hey, as a human being, we have the right to choose, like what we want to think about and how we want to think about it. We're not just a victim. We can choose, say, some kind of disturbance or something. We can say, okay, that's it. I can let this go. I don't have to keep it. Yeah. Yeah.
I understand what you're saying, and I do believe to hold hate is like me drinking poison to hurt somebody else. So letting go of that and letting light come through whatever it is that is this disturbance to me feels like more understanding. The other question that I had is, I heard you say, I believe, 4 normal truths, and I noble truths. Okay, so would you be willing to list them, for me, please?
The Four Noble Truths is dukkha, which is unsatisfactoriness or suffering.
Oh, that's
And then there is the cause of dukkha, which is craving. Then there is the cessation of dukkha, which is letting go of that craving. And then there's the path leading to the cessation of craving, path leading to the cessation of dukkha, which is the Eightfold Noble Path, which is the training, the entire training that we do within Buddhism. So suffering should be fully understood. The craving, which is the cause of suffering, should be let go of. The escape from suffering should be experienced. And the path leading to the end of suffering should be cultivated. That's the Buddhism in a nutshell.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Yes, Maureen.
I also think that when you're having problems with somebody, if you can reach towards compassion, then compassion for them and compassion for yourself, that's helpful too.
Yeah. Yeah. So, what is compassion? In one way, it's very much related to one's intention, what we want to do about it. So, with compassion, we see the suffering of the other person, and we would like them to come out of their suffering. We'd like them to find a way out of their suffering, and not to increase their suffering, but to let their suffering come to an end. And then with compassion, the only thought is, like, how can I help? Is there anything I can offer at this moment that will help this other person to emerge from the difficulty that they're in. Yeah. Compassion in English is come, is with, and then passion, that's feeling. So that's also, it's a sensitivity. In Buddhism, there's like two words. The one, karuna, is usually translated as compassion, and then anukampa is usually translated as sympathy. And anu means with, and kampa means trembling. So if you have anukampa, then whatever what others are experiencing, your own heart, vibrates in sympathy with what the other person is experiencing, and that enables us to know and to understand them. So I think another part of compassion is to be understanding, to be able to not just look at some kind of superficial way about them, but to look deeply and to see and understand others more deeply. Yeah. Thank you. Do you have something to add?
Well, sometimes the compassionate thing.
You're going to have to come and talk to the mic.
Speak loud enough.
This is Patipada.
Sometimes the compassionate thing is to be in the moment, be still, and see what the interaction is triggering in oneself. Because it's the resistance which causes the disturbance. And so what I continuously struggle with is getting old and not being familiar with challenges of young people, because I cannot assume that they are going through what I went through when I was young. Times are just so different. And that lack of knowledge, lack of experience can create it can create a lot of misunderstanding. And so I find myself just saying nothing and just being silent and just putting myself in a place of metta. Because I find that I don't have the right words and I don't have the right understanding. And the older I get, the more I observe I'm experiencing this.
I'm going to call on Maisie.
Hi, Ayya. Just want to say your talk was is very inspiring for me today. So I also want to share something about compassion. I just thought compassion is also can be applied to the self, because I think last year and occasionally still I have some anxiety disorder. So I actually applied compassion to that feeling within.
Mm-hmm.
And I find that it helps me open up to my own dukkha.
Yeah.
There's that embrace of that dukkha
Yeah.
and a warm feeling to it.
Yeah.
And coincidentally, I've been like contemplating on the Brahma Viharas. And Ayya Kema used to say that she preferred to use the word unconditional love for metta, which actually means friendliness. So I just had this like insight that actually the 4 Brahma Viharas together is unconditional love. I'm not sure. It's just my own contemplation. And having that in one's heart, I find that even though sometimes I'm tempted to like break a precept, but having that in one's heart, you're just unable to really harm another because you know that it also harms yourself. So there's no more
Right.
separation between one and
Yes.
the other, I feel.
Yes.
So that's all I want to share. Thanks.
Yes, thank you. That's a very good point. And when they say, like this hiri otapa is sometimes called prudence and conscience. So if you're careful, you don't want to do anything that's harmful to yourself, and you don't want to do anything that your respected friends would be disappointed in you. So those are the two like the gateway that can help us to avoid making mistakes. But we don't want to like go around feeling guilty or punishing ourselves or anything like that. Instead it's like just a very, very gentle. If we see that we've made mistakes before in the past, we just say, okay, those are the conditions for what happened. They have the results. And right now, in this moment, I resolve to be kindness and to be good and not to harm myself or to harm anybody.